He cheated with my best friend. So I made them regret it together. Part 1. Chapter 1, The Warm Lie. Emma had always believed that healing came with stability, and for the first time in years, her life finally felt stable. She lived in a cozy, sun-drenched apartment just outside the city, decorated in soft neutrals and second-hand treasures. Her mornings began with coffee on the balcony and sleepy kisses from Ryan, her boyfriend of 2 years. He wasn't perfect, but she'd grown to trust him. The late nights at work, the forgotten texts, she chalked it up to stress. She didn't question it much. After all, trust was something you built, not something you constantly tested. Ryan was charming in public, affectionate in private, and on the surface a good man. He wasn't overly romantic, but he showed up. He held her hand during long grocery lines, sent "thinking of you" texts in the middle of her meetings, and once waited outside in the rain just to walk her home. That had been the moment, she often thought, when she knew he was the one. And then there was Mia. Mia had been Emma's best friend since college, the kind of friend who stayed up all night to cry with you after a breakup, who dropped off soup when you were sick, who never judged when you made bad decisions. Over the years, they'd grown so close they called each other sisters without blood. Mia had even helped Emma pick out her first real outfit for a date with Ryan. "You need something that says, 'I'm gorgeous, but I don't need to try,'" she had said, holding up a crimson blouse. Ryan and Mia got along well, sometimes too well, Emma had joked once. Mia had laughed and waved it off. "Girl, I wouldn't touch your man with a 10-foot pole. He's all yours." Emma smiled then. She trusted them both. Her life was good. A little routine, but good. The kind of good that makes you sigh with relief. The kind of good you protect. But in hindsight, Emma would remember this chapter of her life not for its warmth but for the lie it was built on. A lie so smooth, so quiet, that it let her sleep soundly while her world began to rot beneath her feet. It started with love. It would end with something colder. Chapter 2, Little Red Flags. The first red flag came on a Tuesday. Emma had spent the better part of the afternoon planning a small weekend getaway for her and Ryan. Nothing extravagant, just a quiet cabin in the woods with a hot tub and no phone signal. She was excited. They'd both been working long hours lately, drifting into routines that left little room for connection. This trip would be good for them. She texted him the idea. "Found a cute cabin. Thinking Friday to Sunday, just us. You in?" No response. Not for an hour. Then 2. Then 3. By the time Ryan messaged back, it was past 10 p.m. "Long day. Sorry babe. Let's talk about it later." No heart emoji. No enthusiasm. Just cold, tired indifference. Emma frowned. Ryan was always quick to reply, even if just with a thumbs up. But she brushed it off. Maybe it had been a long day. His work had been stressful lately, meetings, deadlines, some new regional manager breathing down his neck. The second flag came that weekend. They went to dinner with friends, and Mia was there, as usual. The three of them had always hung out in a comfortable triangle: Emma, the partner, Ryan, the boyfriend, and Mia, the best friend who always had a seat at their table. It had never felt strange before. But this time, something felt off. Emma noticed the glance. Not just a glance, a look that lingered a little too long. Mia was laughing at something Ryan said, head tilted, hand lightly brushing his arm in mock scolding. A perfectly innocent gesture. If you weren't looking closely. But Emma saw it. And for the first time, she didn't smile. Still, she told herself it was nothing. Mia was naturally affectionate. Ryan was charismatic. They had good chemistry, sure, but in the way that friends did. Right? Still, that night as they got ready for bed, Emma asked casually, you and Mia seem to be in sync tonight. You two getting along a little too well." Ryan looked surprised. "What? No. Don't be weird." Weird. That word stung more than she expected. "I was joking," she lied, her voice light. "Relax." He didn't. His expression stiffened, and he changed the subject. Over the next few weeks, the flags multiplied, subtle, small, and deniable, but there. Mia started texting Emma less, showing up late to coffee meetups with vague excuses. Ryan kept mentioning work drinks with no clear names attached. Emma found herself asking questions she never used to ask, then scolding herself for asking them at all. One evening, she found a wine glass in the sink when she came home from a late shift. She hadn't had any wine. Ryan claimed he had a drink after work, just one glass. Alone. But Emma's instincts twitched. Mia loved that same exact merlot. She had once called it liquid silk. And then there was the night Mia said she was sick and couldn't make Emma's girls' night dinner, only for Emma to catch a glimpse of her in the background of a blurry Instagram story at a rooftop bar. Not with friends. Just a friend. A tall, familiar silhouette beside her. Emma said nothing. But that night, something shifted inside her. Not a storm, not a scream, but a quiet click, like the sound of a lock turning. She didn't explode. She didn't accuse. She started paying attention. Because sometimes, the most dangerous women don't rage. They watch. And wait. Chapter 3, The Birthday That Changed Everything. Emma didn't expect fireworks on her birthday. She wasn't the kind of woman who needed surprises or a crowd. A quiet dinner, a handwritten card, maybe some thoughtful words from Ryan, that was more than enough for her. Her birthday fell on a Thursday that year, gray skies, light drizzle, and the usual morning rush. She woke up alone. The other side of the bed was already cold. Ryan had an early meeting, he'd said the night before, but he promised they'd do something special that evening. She smiled to herself as she sipped her coffee, expecting maybe a cozy dinner reservation or, at the very least, a thoughtful delivery sometime during the day. But the hours passed in silence. No flowers. No text. Not even a quick "happy birthday, babe." She told herself he was just busy. She checked her phone more than usual, even kept the ringer on, just in case she missed a call. By lunchtime, her co-workers who remembered had brought cupcakes and made a big deal out of it. She laughed along with them, smiled for photos, but the silence from Ryan started to feel less like an oversight and more like a message. By mid-afternoon, still no word. That's when she messaged Mia. "Can we do wine and cake tonight?" Ryan's being weirdly quiet. The typing bubble popped up. Then vanished. After 10 minutes, Mia finally replied. "Ugh, I'm so sorry, babe. I caught something, feeling awful. Gonna crawl into bed early tonight. Rain check." Emma stared at the screen. The reply was unusually stiff. No emojis. No classic Mia dramatics. Just a cold, vague shutdown. On her birthday. Emma replied with a simple, feel better yellow heart, but her stomach was in knots. She placed her phone on the table, then just stared at it for a long time. She thought about the wine glass. The weird rooftop Instagram story. Ryan's subtle shift in tone over the past few weeks. Mia's sudden, avoidant distance. She didn't want to connect the dots. But she could feel the shape of them forming in her gut. At 7:42 p.m., the front door finally opened. Ryan walked in carrying a bag of takeout. Thai food. No gift. No flowers. No card. "Hey," he said, setting the bag down on the counter like it was any other night. "Long day. Let's eat." Emma blinked. "You forgot, didn't you?" Ryan froze. Forgot what? A beat of silence passed. And then it hit him. Shit. Emma, I'm so sorry. Today's been hell, It's my birthday, Ryan. I know. I mean I knew. I just got slammed at work. I was gonna pick something up on the way home, but then I figured we'd celebrate this weekend anyway. Stop, Emma said, calmly. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. But something inside her had just gone still. Ryan came toward her, arms halfway open, but she stepped back. "I'm not mad," she said. "I'm just not surprised." That line landed harder than any scream could have. Later that night, after Ryan fell asleep on the couch halfway through a movie he chose to make it up to her, Emma sat in the bedroom with her laptop open. The apartment was quiet. Cold. She opened a private folder and started uploading everything she had been quietly collecting over the last few weeks. Screenshots. Text logs. Social media cross-references. Photos. Dates. Times. Names. She didn't know yet how far this would go. But she knew one thing for certain. She'd never look at this birthday the same way again. This was the day everything changed. Not because of what she lost, but because of what she finally saw. Chapter 4, A Whisper in the Crowd. The following Saturday, Emma dragged herself out of bed earlier than usual. She hadn't been sleeping much lately. Her mind buzzed, constantly replaying details, second-guessing moments, trying to convince herself she was wrong about what she was starting to suspect. She wasn't. She just didn't have proof. Not yet. Her friend Taylor was hosting a networking mixer that evening, a casual rooftop gathering for creatives, freelancers, and startup hopefuls. Normally, Emma would have been excited. She worked in branding and design, and this kind of event was her zone: drinks, elevator pitches, stylish strangers in half-serious conversation. But today, she wasn't going for the connections. She was going for the distraction. By 6:45 p.m., Emma stepped onto the rooftop, the city skyline wrapped around her in shades of dusk and neon. Music drifted lightly from a corner speaker, and the buzz of overlapping conversations created a comfortable hum. She wore a black blazer, red lipstick, and a carefully practiced smile. It worked mostly. She was halfway through her second glass of wine when it happened. Emma was leaning over a high table, listening to a UX designer talk about his new app, when a voice behind her broke through the noise like a crack in glass. "I saw him at Illyra last week." Not alone. Her ears sharpened immediately. Illyra was the new cocktail bar that had opened across town, the kind of place with velvet booths and overpriced drinks, somewhere people went when they wanted to be seen. The voice belonged to a woman with tightly coiled curls, wearing a navy jumpsuit and holding a martini with practiced elegance. She wasn't speaking to Emma, she was talking to a guy beside her, unaware that her words had struck a target they weren't aimed for. The man raised an eyebrow. "Who?" "I think his name's Ryan." "Tall, corporate type. Wears those fitted shirts. I met him at that gallery event with Mia a while back." Emma froze. She turned her head slowly. The conversation was still flowing around her, but in her body, everything had gone still. The woman continued, casually sipping her drink. "Anyway, yeah, he was definitely on a date. I assumed he and Mia had gone public or whatever. It was kind of weird because I thought he was with someone else, but I didn't want to pry." Emma felt her chest tighten, but her face remained calm. She excused herself from the UX designer with a polite smile and drifted toward the bar, pretending to scroll her phone. She didn't speak to the woman. Didn't react. But the damage was done. There it was. A whisper in the crowd. Unintentional. Unfiltered. But piercing. A truth casually dropped by a stranger, not knowing it would split open everything Emma had been trying to hold together. So Mia was seen with Ryan. At a bar. In public. On a date. Not a theory. Not a maybe. Not paranoia. Confirmation real, verbal, unbiased. Later that night, Emma lay in bed with her fingers interlocked on her stomach, staring at the ceiling. Her wine glass sat untouched on the bedside table. She wasn't crying. She didn't feel rage. Not even grief. She felt the stillness again. It wasn't numbness, not quite. It was more like sharpening. She was done pretending. Done doubting herself. Done excusing people she once loved. That whisper in the crowd had told her everything she needed to know. They weren't just betraying her behind her back. They were comfortable doing it. Proud, even. And that was the moment Emma's plan stopped being vague. From here on out, it would be intentional. Chapter 5, Private Pain. Emma had never understood how silence could be so loud until now. It had been 3 days since the rooftop party. 3 days since that stranger's casual remark cut through her denial like a scalpel. Since then, the world hadn't changed. But she had. She hadn't confronted Ryan. Not yet. She hadn't texted Mia. She didn't even want to. Instead, Emma sank into something deeper, quieter. A kind of inward spiral that looked calm on the surface but churned like a storm just beneath. She still went to work. Still smiled at the barista. Still answered emails. But inside, her chest felt hollow. Her throat tight. Her thoughts sharper than ever. She had always been emotional. Sensitive. She wore her heart close to the surface and cried during documentaries. But now, her emotions were retreating, not disappearing, just reorganizing. Pain, she was learning, didn't always scream. Sometimes it watched. Sometimes it took notes. Sometimes it built blueprints. That evening, Emma came home to an empty apartment. Ryan was working late again. She didn't ask questions. She just nodded when he texted and tossed her phone onto the couch. She walked through the apartment slowly, taking everything in, not the decor or the mess, but the memories. This was the place where she had once imagined a future. Where she'd whispered "I love yous" and danced barefoot in the kitchen. It had been their safe place. Now it felt like a crime scene she hadn't realized she was living in. She opened the closet and looked at the row of clothes, Ryan's pressed shirts, his ties, his scent still clinging to the cotton. She didn't touch anything. Just stared. And then, like her body moved without asking, Emma walked into the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the cold tile floor. Not to cry. But to breathe. In. Out. In. Out. She counted her breaths until they slowed. Until the weight pressing on her chest softened. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She reached for it and saw a text from Mia. "Hope you're okay, babe. Haven't heard from you all week, pensive face, miss you." Emma stared at it. The message was casual. Carefree. As if nothing had happened. As if the fabric of their friendship hadn't been ripped at the seams. Emma didn't reply. She set the phone down and sat there, alone in the quiet. Not because she had nothing to say, but because saying anything now would be too small, too soon. She didn't want confrontation. Not yet. She wanted clarity. She wanted proof. She wanted to know everything. She pulled out her laptop, opened her secure folder, and began organizing her evidence. Photos went into one subfolder. Screenshots into another. Voice memos, things Ryan had said that didn't sit right, were labeled by date. Instagram stories, pulled from both of their profiles and friends' accounts, were saved and cataloged. She started building a timeline. When had the lies started? What moments had she missed? What signs had she ignored? She wasn't spiraling. She was building. Because Emma knew something now, something she had never wanted to believe. You could love someone and still be betrayed. You could trust someone and still be played. And you could feel like your heart had been shattered, yet somehow, not shed a single tear. This wasn't weakness. This was pain evolving into strategy. At 11:37 p.m., Ryan came home. His tie was loosened, his hair tousled in that way that once made her smile. He leaned into the doorway. "You're up late," he said. She looked up from her laptop and smiled softly, the same smile she'd always given him. But now it was made of steel. "Just catching up on a few things," she said. And that was the truth. Just not the whole truth. Chapter 6, The First Clue. It happened by accident. The first real, physical clue didn't come from late-night digging, a dramatic discovery, or even a burst of intuition. It came on a sleepy Sunday afternoon, one of those quiet days when the air feels heavy with routine. Emma had spent the morning cleaning. Not out of necessity, but because she needed something mindless to do, something to distract her from the weight pressing on her chest, something that wouldn't ask questions the way her mind did. Ryan had gone out to meet a client for brunch. It was vague, unconfirmed, and too rehearsed. But Emma didn't press him. Not anymore. She was no longer chasing lies. She was simply collecting truths. By early afternoon, she found herself cleaning out the back seat of Ryan's car. He'd left it parked in their building's underground garage, and she figured it was a good way to kill 30 minutes. She'd done it many times before, grabbing crumpled receipts, half-empty water bottles, protein bar wrappers. It always amazed her how messy he could be in small spaces while insisting he was organized where it mattered. She was reaching down between the seat and the center console when her fingers brushed something unfamiliar. Thin. Metallic. Cool. She pulled it out slowly. A delicate, silver bracelet, dainty, with a small, opal heart charm hanging from its chain. Emma stared at it in her palm, confusion washing over her. It wasn't hers. She didn't own anything like it. But it was familiar. And then it clicked. Mia. Emma had seen this bracelet on Mia's wrist dozens of times. It had a small scratch on the heart charm, a tiny crescent scar across the surface. Mia used to fidget with it when she was nervous. Said she'd had it since college. Sentimental junk, she once called it, but Emma remembered how fiercely she protected it. A few weeks ago, Mia had mentioned she lost it. Said she must have dropped it somewhere in her apartment or at the gym. She'd laughed it off. But here it was. In Ryan's car. Tucked beneath the seat. Not in the back. Not on the floor mat. But wedged tightly in the space where someone would drop something while leaning over from the passenger side. Emma stared at the bracelet for a long time, her heart thudding against her ribs. This wasn't speculation. This wasn't interpretation. This was evidence. Physical. Personal. Undeniable. The kind of thing no excuse could explain away. She didn't cry. Didn't tremble. Instead, she pulled out her phone, turned the bracelet in her hand to reveal the heart charm, and snapped 3 clear, close-up photos from different angles. Then she placed the bracelet inside a Ziploc bag and tucked it in her purse. She wasn't planning to confront anyone with it, not yet. But it was proof, and now she had it. Proof they had been in his car together. Proof Mia had lied. Proof Ryan had let her. Emma climbed back into the driver's seat and just sat there for a while, hands on the wheel, staring through the windshield at the concrete wall in front of her. She felt oddly calm. Not relieved. Not even angry. Just confirmed. That night, when Ryan came home, he kissed her on the cheek and asked what she'd been up to. She smiled and told him she cleaned his car. He froze for a fraction of a second, barely enough to notice. But Emma saw it. She saw everything now. "Thanks, babe," he said casually, trying to recover. "I've been meaning to do that." Emma just nodded, then asked if he wanted wine with dinner. He smiled and said, "Sure." And as they sat down to eat, Emma said nothing about the bracelet. Nothing about the lie. Nothing at all. Because she was learning something new. There was power in knowing. And even more power in waiting. Chapter 7, Digital Ghosts. Emma had never considered herself tech-savvy. She wasn't the type to snoop through phones or read messages over a shoulder. She valued privacy, or at least, she used to. But something changes when you realize the people closest to you have been lying. Something hardens, sharpens. The rules you lived by. They no longer apply when the game you're in was rigged from the start. She hadn't planned to look through Ryan's phone. But once the bracelet appeared, she knew the truth wasn't just hiding in glances or missed birthdays, it was somewhere deeper, behind screens and passwords. So, she made a decision. Quiet. Calculated. No confrontation. No hysteria. Just one quiet night, and the right opportunity. It came faster than she expected. That Wednesday, Ryan left for work in a rush, briefcase in hand, shirt wrinkled, toast half eaten. Emma stayed behind on a work-from-home day. As he kissed her cheek goodbye, he left his phone charging on the kitchen counter. Unlocked. He must have been distracted. Or careless. Or, more likely, too confident. Emma waited until the elevator chimed down the hall. Then, calmly, she unplugged the phone, took a deep breath, and opened it. She wasn't looking for a smoking gun. She was looking for patterns. Gaps. Ghosts. The first thing she noticed was that all his messages with Mia were gone. No threads. No photos. Not a single hey. Emma had seen their chats before. They used to exchange memes, logistics for parties, casual jokes about movies. It would have been strange if she hadn't seen messages there. But now, it was wiped clean. Too clean. She checked his call logs. Same thing. Mia's name wasn't there, not even in the recent deletions. Which meant he'd either been calling her from another number. Or he'd found a smarter way. Emma tapped into his cloud backups. Ryan had never been great with tech, and like many people, he assumed deleted meant gone. It didn't. Within 10 minutes, she found what she was looking for. Old backups from a previous phone, likely the one he'd replaced 6 months ago when he claimed it crashed unexpectedly. Inside the archive was a folder of photos. Most were innocent. Some work shots. Selfies. Travel pics. But then, buried deep, a small group of pictures took her breath away. They weren't explicit. That's what made them worse. They were intimate. Ryan and Mia sitting together at a rooftop bar. Ryan taking a photo of her mid-laugh, her hand casually resting on his thigh. A blurry selfie of the two of them in a dimly lit room, her head resting on his shoulder, her expression soft, familiar. One close-up of 2 wine glasses on his coffee table. Emma recognized the rug, it was their apartment. But she hadn't been home that weekend. She kept scrolling. And there it was, a screen capture of a text message from Mia, sent months ago. "You should tell her soon. This is getting risky." Followed by his reply. "I will. Just waiting for the right time. Don't stress." Emma stared at the screen, her face calm, her heart steady. The right time. He had been planning this. Not a one-night mistake. Not a slip. A secret. With timelines. And excuses. He had been managing 2 lives, hers and Mia's, like a project plan. Emma copied everything to a secure flash drive and also uploaded it to a private cloud folder. She knew better than to leave evidence on a single device. Then she placed his phone exactly where he left it, screen locked, charger coiled neatly. By the time Ryan returned home that night, she had made dinner, laughed at his jokes, kissed him good night. But something in her eyes had changed. She was no longer wondering if he had cheated. She was no longer hurt. She was planning. That night, in bed, Ryan turned over and mumbled sleepily, "You're so quiet lately. Everything okay?" Emma turned to face him, her smile small and unreadable in the dark. "I'm just thinking." He kissed her forehead. "About what?" She closed her eyes. "About what people deserve." He chuckled. "That sounds deep." "Oh," she whispered. "It is." Chapter 8, Confirmation. It had taken her weeks to piece it all together. Moments that once felt like coincidences were now data points. Every casual lie, every delayed text, every awkward glance was part of a pattern Emma could no longer ignore. But even with the photo evidence, the old texts, and the bracelet in a Ziploc bag hidden behind her sweaters, there was still a sliver of her heart clinging to doubt. A final breath of hope gasping for air. What if she was wrong? What if there was an explanation? What if despite everything she confronted them and they found a way to twist it? To turn it back on her? She needed confirmation. A moment that could not be denied. A thread that, once pulled, unraveled it all in front of her, clean, exposed, inarguable. She didn't want to catch them. She wanted them to catch themselves. The opportunity came on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Ryan had forgotten his tablet again, a common occurrence lately, which annoyed Emma more than usual now. She was working from home and had just finished a client call when his message came through. "Ugh. Can you do me a huge favor? I left my tablet on the dining table. Can you bring it to the office? I have a pitch at 3. She hesitated. Not because of the inconvenience but because something about the tone felt familiar. Offhand. Distracted. Like he was somewhere else mentally. She typed a quick reply. "Sure. On my way in a few." He responded instantly. "Thanks. You're the best. I owe you." He did owe her more than he knew. She didn't drive straight to his office. Instead, Emma drove to a coffee shop across the street, parked discreetly in the back lot, and waited. She had a gut feeling. It wasn't psychic. It was pattern recognition, the kind of clarity that comes when you finally stop telling yourself comforting lies. Through the shop's rain-speckled window, she had a clear view of the building's entrance. Employees came and went with umbrellas and takeaway bags. No Ryan yet. But just after 2:30 p.m., her breath caught. There he was, stepping out of a black SUV, laughing. And beside him, holding her own umbrella, was Mia. Not a colleague. Not part of a pitch. Not dressed for business. She wore a soft blue sweater, the one Emma had complimented weeks ago, and jeans too casual for a work meeting. Ryan reached out to tuck a strand of Mia's wet hair behind her ear, and she smiled up at him. It wasn't sexual. It was worse. It was familiar. Natural. The kind of touch that came from practice, not impulse. They disappeared into the building lobby, and Emma's hand tightened around her phone. There it was. Her final thread. She waited 10 minutes. Just enough time. Then she walked calmly into the lobby, her heels clicking against the tile. The receptionist looked up. "Hi, welcome. I'm just here to drop something off for Ryan Marks," Emma said with a polite smile. "He forgot his tablet again?" "Oh, yes, he's in the conference room down the hall with, Mia. They said they are not to be disturbed until after the pitch." Emma handed her the tablet, smiled again, and walked back to her car. She didn't need to see anything else. That night, Ryan came home later than usual. She heard the front door unlock while she was chopping vegetables for dinner. The air smelled like basil and lemon. Calm. Domestic. "Hey," he said casually, setting his bag down. "Thanks again for saving my ass with the tablet." Emma turned, drying her hands on a dish towel. "No problem," she said lightly. "How was the pitch?" "Great, actually. Landed it. They loved our concept." That's good." She opened a bottle of wine. "Was it just you, or did Mia help present?" There was a flicker. Subtle. Quick. But it was there. His eyes darted just slightly to her hands. Then back up. "Mia? No, she just helped polish the deck this morning. Didn't come to the meeting." Emma smiled and handed him a glass of wine. "Interesting," she said. He blinked. "Why?" "Because I saw her walk into your building at 2:30. With you." Ryan froze. Not a full stop. But just long enough. And Emma knew in that 1 second of silence that she had what she came for. Confirmation. The denial that followed was weak. Predictable. I mean, she dropped off some last-minute notes. Not the meeting itself. Emma didn't push. She just nodded. Makes sense. And in that moment, something in Ryan relaxed, thinking she believed him. But she didn't. Because the evidence wasn't just in the texts, the photos, the bracelet. It was in him. The way his lies now came so easily. The way Mia's name slipped off his tongue like it belonged there. Emma sipped her wine and smiled. Because now, it was no longer a question. Now, it was a plan. Chapter 9, She Doesn't Cry. When the door finally closed behind Ryan that morning, Emma stood in the hallway for a long moment, listening to the echo of silence that filled the apartment. Her hand still rested on the door handle, but her thoughts had gone somewhere distant, colder, clearer. This was the day after the confirmation. The day after he'd lied to her face. The day after she'd watched him walk into a building with her best friend, smiling like guilt didn't exist. She had her evidence. Her answer. Her truth. And now, she had her choice. But the strange thing, the thing she hadn't expected, was how quiet her emotions felt. No shaking. No sobbing. No storm of grief. She walked back to the kitchen, reheated her coffee, and sat at the small table by the window. She sipped it slowly, staring out at the overcast city, the clouds thick and low. She waited for the tears. Waited for the crash. Waited for her heart to scream. But it didn't. Because something had shifted in her that even she couldn't name yet. She remembered being a teenager and watching her first heartbreak unfold, how she had curled into bed with a bag of chips, cried until her eyes were raw, and swore she'd never love again. This wasn't like that. This wasn't the ache of loss. It was the awareness of deception. And deception did something strange to grief. It didn't deepen it, it refined it. Burned it down to its sharpest, most focused version. It didn't break her. It made her calculating. At 10:07 a.m., Emma opened her laptop and began going through her folders. She labeled them neatly. Visual evidence, all the photos, screenshots, and story captures. Phone logs, pulled from backups, organized by date. Quotes and lies, snippets from conversations where Ryan's words contradicted his actions. She created a fourth folder called The Show. This one she left empty for now. But she knew exactly what would go there soon. Around noon, Mia texted her. "Miss you, babe. Wanna grab lunch next week?" Emma stared at the message for a full minute. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. Then she locked the screen and placed the phone face down. She didn't need to scream. Didn't need to rage text. Didn't need to ask why. She already knew. Mia was going to keep pretending until the moment it wasn't possible anymore. And when that moment came, Emma wanted it to be public. Devastating. Unforgettable. But not today. That night, Ryan came home smelling like his office faint cologne and printer toner. He wrapped his arms around her waist and kissed her neck. God, I missed you today. Emma turned and smiled softly. You always say that. He chuckled. Because it's always true. She looked up at him and tilted her head. Do you love me? She asked, the words floating out like mist. Ryan blinked, caught off guard. What? Of course I do. Why would you ask that? Emma paused. I don't know, she said. Just curious. She walked away, leaving him standing there. She could feel his confusion behind her, his guilt trying to stitch itself into affection. But she didn't care. Because she had stopped needing his validation the moment she stopped needing his love. That night, while he slept beside her, mouth slightly open, breathing steady, Emma lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She thought about every woman who had ever been betrayed and made to feel like her heartbreak had to be loud to be real. She thought about the cultural obsession with dramatic tears, with breakdowns, with women screaming on kitchen floors. But she wasn't broken. She wasn't fragile. She was finished. And that was so much more dangerous. She didn't cry. She didn't fall apart. She simply began.
Thanks for watching. If this story hit home, don't forget to like the video. It helps more people discover powerful stories like this one. Leave a comment below and tell us what you think, or share your own experience. Subscribe to Revenge and Strong Women for more emotional, gripping tales where strength rises and justice is served. And don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss an upload. Around here, pain doesn't break us, it builds us. And the best revenge is showing them who you became after they tried to destroy you.